Hello, this is Rob Pike, back with part 4 of the video series, God, Science, or Both, Who Can You Trust? In one of the most famous movie clips of all time, during a trial in the movie A Few Good Men, attorney Tom Cruise demanded the truth from Jack Nicholson in a military trial. Nicholson proclaimed, "You can't handle the truth." Why did he say that? Because in this case, the truth was something that was not only shocking and appalling, but criminal in nature. And sometimes the truth is shocking in nature when we seek it out. As a result of this, we find that sometimes people who know the truth deliberately suppress it in order to make something seem to be truth that will fit their own agenda. This is true in all areas of life, but at this time, what I'd like to speak to you today about is truth about the belief in God. There are some who try to put on an air of intellectuality by claiming that they are agnostic. As such, they act as if they can objectively state that there is no truth regarding the existence of God. They claim that it is all a matter of speculation. So my question to you today is this: is it possible to know the truth about God's existence or not? Let's talk about that. In his book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, co-authored by Frank Turek, Norman Geisler wrote that a self-defeating statement is one that fails to meet its own standard. He said, in fact, if we had just to pick one thinking ability as the most valuable we've learned in our many years of seminary and postgraduate education, it would be this: how to identify and refute self-defeating statements. An example from the book will show exactly what he meant. If someone said something like this, "There is no such thing as truth," what would you say? This is a perfect example of a self-defeating statement. You could easily respond to that statement by saying, if there's no such thing as truth, then is what you just said true or not? The fact is that people make self-defeating statements all the time. As Geisler explained, once you are able to spot them, you can become a fearless defender of truth and can show statements for what they are: nonsense. The fact of the matter is that if anyone really believes that there is no truth, then we must ask the question, why then should we learn anything? Why should parents pay thousands of dollars to schools whose professors make such ridiculous statements? The fact is that there is such a thing as truth, and there are such things as falsehoods. By promulgating ideas such as this, there are grave consequences for our society, which have become apparent all the more so in the time in which we're living. False statements like these lead to false ideas, and false ideas lead to horrible outcomes. For example, we've been discussing in the first three videos in this series the facts behind the existence of the universe, and how these facts, especially the fine-tuning of the universe for life on Earth, make it absolutely apparent that there is a divine source behind the structure of the universe and all life in it. So if you ask someone if they believe in God and they state that they are an atheist, what would you say? What if you asked them if they were absolutely positive that there is no God? How do you think they would respond? Well, generally, at that point, you will find out that they do not know for sure whether there's a God or not. Thus, the fact of the matter is they're not an atheist at all, but they are, in fact, agnostic. As Geisler points out in his book, if you continue this discussion and begin to probe deeper, it is likely that one of these self-defeating ideas will come out. For example, if they say that you can't know anything for sure about the existence of God, you could ask them, are you absolutely positive that you can't know anything for sure about the existence of God? And once again, they will probably relent and state that they don't know if it is possible to know anything for sure about God. At this point, you could ask the question, why don't you know if God exists? Oftentimes, this will elicit a response something like this: because no one has shown me convincing evidence of the existence of God. Now you could state, would you be willing to look at some evidence? Then, if you get a positive response, you could proceed with a meaningful discussion. The fact is that once people open their eyes and consider the evidence, that evidence will usually convince them that there is very solid evidence for the existence of God. So now, as we have definitely established that there are truths and there are falsehoods. So far in this series, we've looked at three basic arguments for the existence of God. These can be summed up as number one, the cosmological argument, two, the teleological argument, and three, the moral argument. As we noted in our first video in this series, these three arguments were summed up very well by Dr. William Lane in video number one. First, we have the cosmological argument. This is evidenced by the fact that we have seen the beginning of the universe in what has commonly been called the Big Bang, but has been proven to actually be a controlled release of energy such that all time, space, and matter came into existence at the same time. From this, we learn that God is the best explanation for the origin of the universe. Why? Because of these facts. If the universe did begin, then it had a cause. The universe did begin to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Second, we have the teleological argument. This argues from the point of the design of the universe and how the intricacy of the design makes it possible for life to exist in the universe. As Dr. Lane noted, God is the best explanation for the fine-tuning of the universe for intelligent life. Why? Because of the following facts. A, the fine-tuning of the universe is either due to physical necessity, chance, or design. B, it is not due to physical necessity or chance. And C, therefore, it is due to design. Third, we have the moral argument. This argument basically states, as Dr. Lane noted, God is the best explanation of the existence of objective moral values and duties. Why? Once again, we have the answer. If God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. B, objective moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. As regards this third statement, we must relate to it. We all know that morality is a driving force in human life. We have this thing known as a conscience. It is innate within almost all individuals. It guides us almost instinctively. Most people are deeply committed to the idea that moral values do exist. As such, they actually prize the values of tolerance, open-mindedness, and love, regardless of their religious background. So now, with all of this background behind us, I would like to move on to explain another argument for the existence of God, and this is number 4. That is, God is the best explanation for the historical facts of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Now, you might be saying to yourself, whoa, I don't even believe in Jesus. So how can there be an argument? This could be an argument for the existence of God. Well, the fact is that there is very strong historical evidence for the existence of Jesus. Perhaps the best evidence is the eyewitness testimony. Here is why we can say that. When someone observes a crime and they have no bias, no ulterior motive, and the witness seems to be very credible, then in a court of law, a single witness can be enough added to other evidence to convict a suspect of a crime. When you add more than one credible witness, then it becomes so compelling that it gets to the point to be beyond all conceivable doubt. As this video is in the process of being made, there is one governor in the news now who has 8 witnesses willing to testify against him, and believe me, that governor his job is in big trouble. So let's consider the evidence that Jesus is the unique Son of God who came to the earth. From the time of the death of Jesus until the time of the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, a man by the name of Flavius Josephus gained enough favor with the Roman Emperor Vespasian to be considered. He is considered to be the greatest Jewish historian of all time. Here's what he recorded in the Antiquities of the Jews regarding Jesus of Nazareth. He said, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be called lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those who loved him at the first did not forsake him. For he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these, and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named from him are not extinct at this day. From Antiquity of the Jews by Flavius Josephus, Book 18, Chapter 3, Section 3. Additionally, we find that Josephus made a second reference to Jesus, and that confirmation also mentions that he had a brother named James, who obviously was hated by the rulers of the Jews in those days. And here's what it says. Festus was now dead, and Albinus was put upon the road. So he assembled the Sanhedrin of the judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, or some of his companions. And when he had formed an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned. But as for those who seemed the most equitable of the citizens, and such as were the most uneasy at the breach of the laws, they disliked what was done, and also sent to King Agrippa. This is from Antiquities of the Jews by Flavius Josephus, Book 20, Section 9, or Chapter 9, Section 1. All of this is confirmed in the Bible as written by the Apostle Paul in Galatians 1:19, where it states, "But I saw none of the other apostles except James, the Lord's brother." Now, these are not the only witnesses. Including Josephus, we find that there are 10 known non-Christian writers who mention Jesus within 150 years of his life, and many of these writers are anti-Christian. This is about the same number of references as there are who mention Tiberius Caesar, who was the Roman emperor in those days. Is there any doubt in your mind that Tiberius Caesar existed? And this is not to mention the fact that our entire calendar is based upon the birth of Jesus. Are we not now in the year of our Lord 2021, as it is so stated? Yes, that's right. Our entire dating method, which extends back for over 2,000 years, is based on the birth of this man who was actually a God, and his name was Jesus. So the question now becomes, how much evidence do we need? To reject the idea that Jesus existed and was called the Christ by his loyal followers in the early part of the first century is to totally reject the overwhelming historical evidence of the past 2,000 years. So once again, let's come back to proof number 4 in the argument for the existence of God. And that argument is as follows. God is the best explanation for the historical facts of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. New Testament historians have unanimously agreed that Jesus of Nazareth came on the scene of Jewish history with an unprecedented sense of authority that was given to him by God. In fact, he claimed to be speaking for God. He stated that because he was now present on the earth, that the kingdom of God was now present on the earth. And in order to prove it, he carried out a ministry of proof by performing many miracles which are well documented. But even though this ministry was as powerful as it was, the most powerful proof that he was indeed the Son of God was the fact that he was resurrected from the dead. It served as conclusive evidence that God publicly affirmed his claim. As proof of this, we find there are 4 established facts that are agreed to by the majority of New Testament scholars. These are, number 1, after his crucifixion, Jesus was laid in a tomb by a member of the Jewish Sanhedrin named Joseph of Arimathea. 2, that very tomb was then found empty by a group of followers on the first day of the week following his crucifixion. 3, there were a great many individuals following these events that saw the resurrected Jesus appearing once again in human form. And number 4, the early disciples who were chosen as his apostles, without exception, came to the exact same conclusion, and that was that God raised him from the dead. This evidence of God raising Christ from the dead was so powerful among these disciples that they were all willing to die for their beliefs. In fact, all but the Apostle John were in fact killed for their belief in the Son of God. And these facts that we just mentioned are widely acknowledged by the vast majority of New Testament scholars and therefore confirm the thinking that the historical facts of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus confirm that this is a very powerful proof that the best explanation for them is that the living God is the one who raised Jesus from the dead. Since the best explanation for the resurrection of Jesus from the dead is that God raised him from the dead, then it naturally follows that God does in fact exist. But what about the record of the New Testament as a proof that these events really happened? Can we believe that it is an accurate report? Or is it just a record full of exaggerations and myths? When we come back in our next episode, we will examine the evidence of the truth of this record and more. Won't you join us for this? So until the next time, I would like to say thank you for watching and God bless.